Hi everyone, today I'm going to be giving you a flip through of my first mixed media journal. I started this journal about 2 years ago and it's taken me quite a while to get through. You can see that the pages have got a little bit more bulky towards the end, not quite so much at the start. The start of the journal was more experimental and it took me a while to really get into the feel of mixed media. Before I get into the book, I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about the book itself. I had a book that was about this size, a journal that I had for years and I had never used. Decided that I wanted to start mixed media work. However, I found that it was an absolute pain to work with. If you look at the first few pages here, you can see that it was actually a ring-bound book. And on my very first page here, I've written some of the stuff, some of my experiences with that page. So, this is the weirdest paper ever. It's fine for drawing on, but it's too thin and soft for paint and collage. I've tried gluing pages together, but it's still weird. This is the only paper I've ever come across that other paper won't stick to, and using PVA glue and things just kept peeling off it. It was really strange. So anyway, I decided to make my own book. So I went to my favorite place, YouTube, and started looking at some videos on bookbinding, and decided to use some of the scraps of paper that were left over in the storeroom at the end of the school year. So this is all just cartridge paper, and I made my own book. So I was really excited about that, and I've written about that on the first page here as well. I've made my own. The first few pages are from the weird paper spiral bound book that I had, but the rest of the book is now plain white cartridge paper, and I'm much happier with that. So in my end page here, I have written a poem. This was a poem I had ages ago, but I thought that it really highlighted who I am. It's called Out of Many, One Person, and the Jamaican motto is Out of Many, One People, which speaks about the people in the island coming from different groups. And I think it very much sums up who I am. The poem speaks of, I'll just read through it. Who am I? How do you see me? To you, how do I appear? Am I black, white, red or yellow, dark, medium or fair? Who am I? And how do you see me, and why should I even care? If you see tall, short, fat or slim, if you see straight, curly or frizzy hair. A child of fantasy is what I am, a muse, a dreamer, born of the Wilkes clan. I am me, a brickmaker, an urban country girl, a native of wherever I choose, a citizen of the world. And I think this poem sums me up really well, as I'm such a mixed person, and all of those mixes have come together to make me who I am. Anyway, let's get into the journal. This is my first page. I hate it. Let's just start with that. I tried out painting on a magazine picture and I made a complete mess of it. But apart from her, I don't mind the rest of the page. These leaves were actually done by printing real leaves, taking real leaves and just putting paint on the back of them and printing them onto paper. And then I cut those out after creating my background, cut those out, glued those down. I went back over them with a thin acrylic paint to give it a little bit more color, and then painted in these leaves. The birdie over here is a stencil that I had made myself. I'll show you some of my stencils in a little while. And the text that's coming through was actually on the magazine or newspaper that was glued down to start with, and it just faintly says enjoy it. And I was enjoying it. I was enjoying just playing and having fun on the page. Next page, this you can see was done way back in May 2015. Next page is just some sketches. And then on this page, I started to try and experiment with concept, I guess you could say. I wanted an African feel. I think that's pretty obvious. So I was using a lot of earth tones, just tearing bits from magazines, gluing them down to the paper. I drew this girl and wanted a tribal look, so I based the necklace off the Maasai beaded necklaces, and the hair is kind of locks like Rasta's hair. It's got a little picture of an elephant. I've taken a zebra print from a magazine and I ripped that in half and separated it and then just extended the lines. I've put in a leopard print in the background, and then some of the other areas I just filled in with chalk pastels. The entire thing has been sprayed with a holding spray. I'll show you that spray in a moment as well. I'm really in love with it, and I spray almost all my pages with it. This page was just experimenting with some of my stencils. As I said, I wanted stencils, couldn't find any in the local art stores here, and what I did find wasn't much use. So I decided to make my own. So this one, as you can see, is that basically. Which way does it go? It goes that way. Right, so I've just cut circles. I hope you can see that. And I've got quite a few. I make them out of plastic from file jackets. There's another one. I hope that shows. I maybe need to put that behind a sheet of black paper so you can see. The ones like this, I've gone online and found pictures that I've liked, printed them off, and then cut my stencils. And then some of them I have totally made up myself. So I've got pictures of butterflies, and I've got the bird that you saw used on the other page. This stuff here, once again, wanting lovely art materials that I didn't have. I've seen a lot of people online using washi tape, and I didn't have any. So I came across, quite recently actually, this stuff, which is used for wrapping books. I guess you could use it for wrapping presents. It's a paper that has a peel off backing to it. And so I've just used it, peeled it off and stuck it down, and kind of used it like a washi tape. It is plasticky, so I'm not sure how well it would work for painting. You can see this bit is kind of peeled off, but it was just experimenting and having fun. It's a few more of my stencils and my washi tape. Right, this book is not chronological as such. As you see, this was done in 2017, so this was actually one of the last pages. What happened here was that there was a page my daughter had scribbled all over, and I very much wanted this book to just be mine. I wanted a place where I could just think and play and experiment and lose myself in a sense. So I took the 2 pages that she had scribbled on and I glued them together here. And then this spread was actually started with scrap paper, just waste paper napkins. I think I had been doing some tie and dye at school, and we had some paper on the table. And so I had all of these papers that had absorbed the dyes, and that's where a lot of the background color came from. So I ripped that up, glued it to the surface, and there's a little bit of a print that I'd been messing about with on there. And then I went on to draw the flowers, just made them up as I went along. I painted them with watercolors. I did use it a bit thick, so they're more like poster paints than actual watercolors, and then just went round it with a black ink pen. It's a gel ink black ink pen afterwards to give it some, and of course there's a paint splatters, and I call this piece Flower Garden. This page was just a day of utter frustration. I got my daughter ready to go out, and we were supposed to be going to a religious service which would last about 2 hours. We go every week, so it's something she's used to. But on this day, she decided that her dress didn't have enough spin in it. In other words, she wanted a dress that she could twirl in. And I didn't have time to get a dress, so we went. And she cried through the entire service. 2 hours of her moaning and complaining that her dress didn't have enough spin. So I decided to scream into my book instead of screaming into her. At her, rather. So this page is just scribbling. A couple of rough drawings as well. And once again, started something here that didn't quite finish. So my first few pages, I don't think they're that interesting, but it gets better. And yeah, there's a page that my daughter scribbled on that I left. This is one of the first pages where I really began to feel as if I was thinking. In a way, it's kind of based off this jungle girl, but I was now making her become part of the jungle. So her hair becomes vines and leaves. I was almost scared to start painting on this, so I photocopied the page, and I'm planning to use the photocopy to paint on rather than going straight onto this. I'm just fearful that I'm going to mess it up, so I'm going to use the copy to mess about with, to play about with before I touch this. So that was done ages ago, still not finished, and I've got another page like that. I'm going to skip through this one because that's just me moaning and chatting and writing stuff. This page took a very long time. I stuck tissue papers down in the background, and some of my tissue papers are things that I've bought products and they've been gift wrapped in tissue paper, or things that have been in shoe boxes, literally anything. Some of these were doodles that were done on lined paper, and they were just cut out and stuck onto the page. And then I've just worked on top with just circles and circles and circles. So I eventually called this piece Circles and Cycles, and it was one of those things that I just kept coming back to and adding more. And I really, really like that page, as I've written there. I love this page. This was something that I saw online and wanted to try, and was just really just experimenting with it. So for the background, the bottom half here is from papers from magazines. The top half are some papers that I had painted on and then ripped up. I hadn't painted it for this project, but there were scraps of paper that I had left over that I had painted on. So I decided to use those at the top and then the magazine paper at the bottom to give a darker shadow effect at the bottom. And then obviously the flowers themselves are filled with newspaper, and then I just highlighted the edges with a marker, a felt tip pen. A lot of my pages I ended up actually gluing 2 pages together, so they are quite thick. Because even though it's cottage paper, at this time I wasn't working with gesso. I didn't even know what gesso was at the time. This was a stencil that was on the front of a student's notebook. When she finished with the notebook, I asked her if she had any intention of using a stencil. She said no, and I asked her if I could have it, so I was just playing about with that as well. This was another page that had great potential but didn't quite get finished. I don't know, I might get back to it one day. And I was just playing around with forms and shapes and just shading with pencil crayons. This one I did finish off a little bit more. I think I've missed a page. I've skipped a page because there's one with nostalgia that I'm gonna go back to. There we go. I did miss a page. This page was all about me missing things. I've written there that I'm happily married and I love being a mom, but sometimes I forget that my life ended when this family began. And it was just one of those days when you feel as if you had to give up something that you wanted to do or you couldn't quite do for the sake of your family. It happens. And the bottom bit is talking about me feeling hot and missing my boots. It was May 2015, living in Jamaica, feeling hot and missing the days when I could wear boots and coats and snuggle up and feel cozy in England. I know many people maybe think that's weird, but I do like the cold. I don't mind it. So you'll notice here on this page that there's a bit that just defines nostalgia. So what I did after almost finishing the book, I went through an old dictionary and just ripped out some pages, some definitions for what each page is about. So this one says nostalgia. This one says relax, and it's all about being flowy and watery. So I've got really organic lines, these kind of watery blobs, little circles, little bubbles almost, and the words go with the flow. And it's the first page I think that I've really written anything on, and then added in the word relax from the dictionary. Once again, this one is very similar to the one with the face, in that I had a great idea but it never came to fruition, so it's similar to this one. And it just never ends. It was just one of those days when you feel like you're running and running and running and nothing's getting done, and you think you've done something, somebody else brings something, puts something else on your table. And I've got ideas. In fact, I had some cardboard cutouts that I started to do. Once again, I'm creating my own art materials. I started making some cogs. This is just from a Zero box. And I've got a little envelope somewhere with quite a few of them that I've cut out. So my intention was to put cogs all over this page, as if you're running in this hamster wheel and you're just part of this machine. And it just was really tiring that day and felt like it never ends. And I'm really planning to get back to that page. This, I think a lot of my pages have come out of frustration. Days when I wanted to do and I couldn't quite get to do what I wanted to do. So this was very similar to the concept of this one. I was thinking about all of the things that make me happy. Things that help me to relax and unwind. And at that point in time, I was being bitten by the sewing bug. I wanted to start sewing. I had projects in mind, but I just had no time to get round to it. And so this, I put it into the page because this book was really handy to just walk around with. I could carry it around with me. And so I started this, but I didn't actually get around to finishing it until sometime in 2016 when I got a pack of watercolor pencils. I happened to visit England at the time, and I bought myself a pack of cheap watercolor pencils, and that's what I used to do the color. But I had all the words and everything else written on the page before. This one is experimenting with lines, so very similar to the ones that I did with the circles, except on this page I'm just working with shapes, and I love filling with pattern. My only regret is that it's on a white background. I wish I had some colored background, or maybe that's something I'll explore on another page one day. Colored background, and then doing the lines and the patterns just in blue or black pen and not so much colors. But I enjoyed it. This was in 2016, and it was nice playing about, just experimenting. This is very similar to that page, same sort of organic blobby forms, but painting them in and just experimenting with texture in this case. Here I was trying to create different textures. So there's paint, there's markers in it in some places, but it's mainly paint and just using different brush marks. There's pen on top of the paint in this case, and felt tips and markers used there. I'm just trying to create different textures on each of these blobs. So some of them feel a bit soft and furry, or some of them feel very smooth and reflective. This page here was experimenting with trying to create my own colors from nature. So I literally went around and just grabbed plants. There's marigolds, there's crotons, there's a Durante gold plant, there's coffee and onion skin and tea and different things. This is my little measuring tool. It's just got tape on the back so I can keep it on the page. And I have literally gone around and found anything I thought that would create color and crushed it and rubbed it onto a piece of paper, and then I just use this to cut it out, stick it down and label it. And it's been fun. I'm not sure what I'll do with them. I don't know if I can actually create a piece of artwork from them. Some of them I was already aware of that I could create colors based on the fact that I have done natural dyes for textiles work, and some of them was just play. So we'll see. I might do something with them yet, I don't know. This page was me being a bit of a feminist and just complaining about all the things that women had to deal with, and all the things that women had to do, and all the things that men got away with. So I was having a little bit of a moan on that day as well. And there's another page that my daughter scribbled on. This day is me being all in a swell. We were supposed to be going on a flight. It should have been my mom, myself, and my daughter who were going. And on the day, got to the airport only to find that my mom had brought her the wrong passport. She had a new passport, but it didn't have her visa stamped in it, and she couldn't fly. So it ended up with my daughter and I going ahead, and it just left me feeling out of sorts. My mom came a few days later. Everything worked out fine. But on that day, I was all in a swell. So I worked on this on the flight and finished it off after getting back, I think. Or I think I finished off while I was in England. This page kind of sums up the poem that was at the start. This is all the things that make me who I am. I'm a mother, I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm a wife, I'm a human, I'm a storyteller, I'm a gardener, I'm a sewist, I'm a daydreamer, I'm a cook, I'm a friend, I'm a counselor, I'm Brit Macon or Jamglish, whichever way you want to put that. I'm a teacher, I'm a preacher, I'm a woman, I'm a leader, I'm a nurse, all the things that make me who I am. And I love doing this page. There's paint, there's markers, there's stencils, there's tissue paper butterflies, there's stencil printed butterflies, there's all sorts of stuff going on it, and I really enjoy doing that. I think this is where I'm actually starting to get into the mixed media work here. That day, which was a perfect day, everything had just worked out perfectly. So I didn't actually do a picture, but I did write about having a really good day. I've never felt this picture was quite finished. I like the girl that I found in this magazine. The swells on the page were created with glue, so just pouring PVA glue onto the page and leaving it for ages until it dried. And then I painted on top of it. I've used, forgotten some of the stuff now. I think I used chalk pastels and pen, and then I sprayed it to keep all the chalk down with my holding spray. This was also something that I saw online. I hope you can see that. I drew the picture first, then glued string onto the lines to create the raised lines, and then glued aluminum foil onto the page, and then colored it all with markers and used rubbing alcohol to blend out some of the colors. And that was just something that I saw online and wanted to try as well. I think I came across that on Pinterest. I wanted to try it. This came from a picture that I saw on Pinterest as well, and I did the activity with my daughter where you put your hand down and you draw around it, and then you draw the lines, but when you get to your hand you do them curved, so it looks as if the hand is coming out of the page. I decided to just do the same thing with the circles, so hopefully the circles look raised. This summed up my trip to England, and I absolutely love this page. These were actually leaves that I collected while I was in England. It was in the autumn, in October last year, and it was just beautiful. It was just the nice cool weather. I could relax. There were the trees that were all yellow and golden, and this page just summed up that whole trip. So it's actual leaves, it's covered in tissue paper, and then I've painted, I've used chalk pastels, I've used markers of pens, all sorts of stuff on top. This page, I started out with a drawing, and if you were to see this step by step, the actual painted page looks nothing like the original drawing that I started with. The flowers here come from magazine, the butterflies are from tissue paper, the hair, the vines that are her hair are painted in, and then some of the leaves are actually bits of magazine paper and colored paper, and some of them are painted, so it's all a bit of mix of everything. There are watercolor pencils on her face. There's all sorts of stuff. But if you look carefully, you can actually see where the painting has evolved and changed, because there's actually bits that I just couldn't block out. Some of the guidelines that I drew and where eyebrows were, and some of the marks that just couldn't quite come out how I wanted. But I was quite pleased with this when I finished it. This page, I've stuck the word tribe on the bottom, and this speaks about how, as humans, we all like to form groups. So it says, find your tribe. And although the faces don't look the faces look quite fairly European, but I wanted the markings to look tribal, because we all find a group, whether it's through our friends, our family, our religious group, whoever. It doesn't have to be a gang, it doesn't have to be something bad, but as humans, we like to form groups. So we all have our little tribes that we subscribe to. It might even be online. We find groups that we stick with. I absolutely love this page. The girl was from a magazine picture. I hope that's still in view. Yep. The girl was a magazine picture. The skirt was fabric that I painted on, and that made it quite stiff, and then I sewed the top, gathered it together, and glued it down, so you can actually see her legs and her dress underneath there. The entire page had lines. It was colored in with pencil crayon. It's got tissue paper on top. You've got the girl stuck down. I've used lace to create her blouse. I've done beads of hot glue gun for her waistband. There's bits of smocking ribbon. There's bits of lace. There's all sorts of stuff. And it's just called Extra Special. Ugh, I can't speak. Extra Special. Because the page was extra special. And this one is about the rituals that we have in life, the things that we do to relax. For me, my ritual is coming in the evening and having a cup of tea, and that's the perfect way to relax. Everybody needs rituals, and then there's the word ritual stuck down as well. You notice that the page has a bit of a sheen. I keep talking about my holding spray. I'm going to show that to you. It is actually this stuff. It's called Pump It Up. It's a hairspray. It's a liquid hairspray. And it's one of those things that really hold your hair in place. It's used for Afro-Caribbean hair. And on this page, I love the effect that it caused, because the pen that I used was not, it was water soluble. It's a gelling pen, but it did run. It would run if it got wet. And I used a lot of pen ink on this page, and then I basically soaked the page with this spray. And it caused the pen to run, but then when it dries, it's set. And it does give the page a bit of a varnish, a bit of a sheen, and it actually smells quite nice as well, so that's an added bonus. It does feel a bit sticky still at times, but especially when you've used things like chalk pastels, it does hold it in place. This page I've called Cubic Textures, and it was just experimenting with textures. I finally started to, after my trip to England, I got myself some gesso, started gessoing the pages. I've got napkins, these are bits of cardboard that were cut onto the background, there's bits of string, modeling paste that I had made myself just using recipes that I found online, typical paint, glue and baby powder, and just pushed that to a stencil, and there's other bits of modeling paste over here to create texture. And this picture actually sparked something else, which I'll get to in a moment. But yeah, I really enjoy this page. I love this page. I love the colors in it, and I called it Cubic Textures. This, I do like it. Not quite as much as this one because it's not as textural, but I like the colors in it, and I do like the lines, and I particularly like the white dots. I think that brings it out, that finished it off. This one, I was just playing around with the colors and textures. There's bubble wrap that was printed in the background. There's bits of corrugated cardboard that was used to print in the background. And I did this in stages. I had the book with me at school. I had a little bit of free time, and I went and painted all over the background and printed on it. And then when I got home days later, I drew the lines in. And then ages later, I found this little zigzag pattern that was on a packaging of a product I'd bought, and decided to add that in. So it wasn't really done in one day. It wasn't even done in a week. It was done over a long time, but this is when I finished it in June 2017. I quite like this page as well. Started drawing a face on a separate piece of paper, and I then ripped that out and glued it down, and then finished off the drawing and tried to make the drawing kind of fade out. And then I was just messing about with swirls, and just using different materials. Once again, watercolor, pencils, there's paint, there's gold pen, there's all sorts of stuff in there. Didn't quite get the white splatters. I tried to do some, but they kind of just disappeared into the page. Maybe it was too wet at the time. Might go back and splatter it again or something. There are a few, but they don't show. And then my book ends with my daughter scribbling, I love you mom, I love you daddy. So I allowed her to use the last page of my book. I've really enjoyed this process. I've learned so much. I've learned how to make a book. I've learned a lot about mixed media. I've been making my own stencils. I've just learned so much. I can't even explain how much I've learned. I've now started my second book. This one is a bit bigger because I wanted a little bit more space to work. Let's make sure you can still see that. I'll zoom out a bit. Yep. So I haven't got very far, but once again I've made the book myself and just started working on a page there. I've actually started about 3 separate pages. I quite like this one and don't think it's completely finished yet, and therefore they're not been dated, but I will get back to them. So I've moved up to a slightly bigger size. The last thing I wanted to say is that from my first mixed media journal here has evolved another project, and this has been some greeting cards. Started with the Cubic Textures picture. One of my colleagues at work loved the picture and wanted to actually buy it. She had seen a photograph, but I explained to her that I couldn't sell it because it was in a journal. And oh, one of the things I forgot to say about this one is that bear in mind that most things I've been talking about, I haven't had the professional art materials to use, just simply because they're really expensive. And this might sound ridiculous. I am an art teacher, but art materials are very expensive here. So I decided to make my own colors for this as well. So I didn't have sprays. What I actually used on this page was food coloring. So when my colleague saw the photograph of it and said she loved it and she wanted to buy it, I explained to her that I couldn't sell it because it was in a book, and even if it wasn't, it was only done with food coloring. So she then said to me, well, why don't you make some cards out of them? And so from that, I have now started making a line of greeting cards. They're blank greeting cards, and That's one design, and that's the other one with the full pattern. So I'll just move the book out of the way. And since then I have gone on to take some of the other pages. That was the purple play one, and the circles and cycles, and the flower garden. So some of the other pages from my journal that have now become greeting cards. And then since then I've added to that a painting. I did this painting years ago in 2005. This is an acrylic on canvas painting, and so I've added that to it. And then since then I've gone on to add some photographs that I've taken, and I've now turned these into greeting cards. So I've now got a whole line of greeting cards, which is, I'm not selling them for a lot, but I am generating a little bit of income from them. So that's quite cool. I'm quite excited about that. And as I go on, I hope to make a few more and bring out a few more designs. So there you go. So that's been my first mixed media journal. I have a lot more work to do. Everything I've shown you so far has just been a flip through of what I have already done. And in the future, I'll be actually posting some tutorials and videos as I'm doing the pieces of work. So keep watching this space. If you like what you've seen, go ahead, hit that thumbs up, and of course subscribe if you want to get notifications of the new videos that are posted. Please leave me any comments. I appreciate all the comments that you leave, and I will try and answer you as soon as possible. Thank you very much for watching.